What's up, members of the barrio? It's John coming to you from my apartment in Greenwich Village, and today we're going to be answering a question that I've received countless times on this channel. What's it like being single in New York City? And today, I've got a special guest for you. His name is Chris Luna. He is one of New York City's top dating coaches, and he's going to help us answer the question, why is it so damn hard to date in New York? And we're also going to give you some actionable advice to help you out if you're single. Chris, you've done national TV before, so first of all, thank you for joining me on this little YouTube channel.
My pleasure. I love your channel. I'm a follower.
Thank you. But the big question on this video is, why is it so frustrating to date in New York City?
For a lot of people who are watching this, even if they are living in New York City, there's a good chance that they came from somewhere else. A lot of people are seeking jobs in urban areas like New York because they can make more money, but we lose that communal aspect, and as a consequence of losing that communal aspect, it can be harder to find a date. Also, community helps keep relationships together, right? And so if we meet somebody through a dating app and we have no prior history and we don't know any of their friends, they don't know any of our friends, then what happens is if things don't work out, there's like no pressure. Not even if things don't work out, if we're having a bad day and we just don't click, there's no necessarily reason to see them again. And so with community, and this still happens in other cultures, community helped nurture that connection. And so that's a big part of it.
It's interesting you brought up the lack of community and how there's no consequences if you have a bad date. And I think that definitely ties into this whole ghosting culture where you go on a few dates with someone, you think it's going well, you text them, and they never respond to you.
There's no social consequences for ghosting. There's very little social consequences. Maybe you run into somebody and they're like, why did you ghost me? Right? But beyond that, there isn't a lot of consequences.
We know that there is a lack of community in many parts of New York City culture and dating in general. What can somebody do who's new here to combat this?
Literally, there's one of the great things about New York City is there's literally community around anything that a person could be interested in. And so you can either go out and you can join a group or you can start your own. I would say start your own group. You can start a meetup or an organization or whatever, but figure out what are the things that you value, what are the things that you're interested in, and then go out and engage with them.
Excellent advice. Definitely a great way to meet people, do things that you're interested in doing, or just stay fit. I have a friend who swears by going to these dodgeball and kickball leagues, and they're co-ed, and they're made for single people. If I was single, that's probably something that I would actually pursue. That sounds like fun.
Another major problem is what I call idealized versions of love. I never forget, I sat down with this girl one time, and she said that she had a list of qualities she was looking for, and she pulled it out and it was over 100 things. And as she went through each one, I just couldn't laugh. She was a stylist, and she goes, I want somebody with a good style. And I said, you don't want somebody with good style, you want somebody with your style. And she started giggling because she knew I was right. But she had this huge list of things that she wanted, and in another time, this wasn't possible. You had to, part of love was compromise, and now what we do is we go on an app and we can say, oh, I want somebody between 5'2" and 5'4", or 5'8" and 5'9", and I want them to have these colored eyes, and I want them to, it's craziness.
I remember when I was on Tinder, there were things like, I'm 5'10", if you're under 6 feet, swipe left. That was just one of them, yeah. And it goes, men too do it. Everyone has these really high standards with the culture of dating apps now. I think that is such a good point that you brought up, is that, if you don't like who you see, there's 100 people just the next direction. Just keep swiping until you find what you like. So you think that this has made things a lot more challenging for the average person here?
Yeah, we have to open ourselves up. It's super important when we go out and we're dating that we're coming from the right place. And I come across a lot of clients who are divorced, and they're like, well, I picked this partner because they made a lot of money, or because she was beautiful, or because whatever, but because they went to a great school, or because they whatever. And so there are these instead of getting to sort of the deeper aspects of who is this person and what type of partner could they be, and is this a person that I would want to wake up with every morning? Is this the person who I'd be willing to take care of when they're sick? Are they going to take care of me when I'm sick? We often don't think about these types of things when we're healthy, but in life, challenges come up, and so who is the person that we're going to want to take those challenges on with? Life is full of adversity, and so thinking about love in that way is a big part of how we work past this.
I agree with you. I think once a person can make that shift, they're going to find somebody else who's willing to do the same thing. And a lot of people in New York, I agree with you, are very into the superficial. Hopefully, if you're watching this, you'll take that. That's really, really good advice.
Another thing I want to talk about is lack of space. This is something that people don't often think about. In New York City, so much of courtship and so much of meeting people and so much of the attempt to nurture intimacy is done in public spaces, right? It's done in bars on a date, or it's done on a rooftop with 200 people standing around, or it's done in Central Park, or the parks where you have hopefully more space, but there's still tons of people around, and so space becomes really instrumental in nurturing intimacy. We were talking earlier, and I was using an example that kind of falls under this, and I'll share it with you all who are listening. And it's this idea that like people will meet somebody in New York, and you have a really cool apartment, but it's definitely small.
350 square feet. Right. We've done 2 tours here. Yeah,
it's smaller than what you would probably get if you were paying the same amount in a lot of other areas.
I'd have a house probably in your town in California.
For sure, yeah. Like my apartment costs more than my brother's house, right? And so it's absolutely crazy, and he has a way bigger house. It's the same idea, but people come home, they meet somebody, they meet them on a dating app, they hang out with them on a couple dates in public, they invite them back to their apartment, and now they're in an apartment, their roommates in in the next room, another roommate's in the next room, maybe with his or her boyfriend or girlfriend. And so what happens is, even though we have intimacy and we have like an intimate space, that space, 70 or 80% of it might be taken up by the bed, and there's other people all around. I had a girlfriend at one point who was living in Battery Park, and so she wanted to live closer to work. She was living with me, but wanted to live closer to work. And so I come over to a new apartment, which she's super excited to have, and she's paying almost $2,000 a month. There's a 2-bedroom apartment, and there was a girl in one room, another girl in another room, and she had the living room had been cut with shower curtains that went through.
She paid $2,000 for that?
It's like $1,700.
That's another discussion. Go ahead, Billy.
But there was no natural light. The only thing that separated us from when they walked in and out was like a couple shower curtains that like separated. But New York is crazy, so we have to make not everyone's living like that, but there's definitely some people who are listening to this who are living like that. We have to make active effort in order to nurture spaces where we can build these relationships. So another major challenge with New York City is the values, and every community in a broader context, every city, or you could even say every country or every civilization, but has certain values that tend to dominate. Like when I'm up in Boston or Cambridge more specifically, like you have at Harvard and MIT, and it's the value system is education, right? When I'm in DC, like the value system primarily is power. In New York City, status, and people come here to get ahead. So there's a lot of status and money, and that's very different than if somebody lives in an area where family is the most important thing, right? And so when family is the primary value, or somebody wants to be a great husband or wants to be a great wife, and I'm not saying that everybody has that same value in another community outside New York City, and that people in New York City don't have those values, but if somebody's more focused on their career than they are on their relationship and on being a great partner or being a great dad or mom, then that has an effect. When somebody is like living that value system, it's hard to build a deep, fulfilling relationship. And so what happens is in New York, a lot of people or urban areas, they start making these compromises.
You just actually reminded me of a story when you were talking about people's values, wanting status in New York. I remember I went out with this girl once, actually maybe more than once, when I was single. I'm married now. And I was out with her and her friend was complaining to me that she liked this guy, but he lives in Queens. Oh my God, he lives in Queens. That's so horrible. I'm like, really? That's a problem for you? She's like, yeah. I'm like, but the values of New York City can be different than a lot of other cities out there. It could be, you don't make enough money, you don't live in a big enough apartment, you don't live in the right borough or the right neighborhood. How does somebody get past those things, even if those were your values at one point?
Well, yeah, you have to be mindful of what your values are getting you, and if your values are not getting you what the values are not getting you the relationships you want, then you have to dig deeper and evaluate those. It's funny, it made me think of this girl that I know, and she's talking about the same problem, and she saved up money and bought her own house in New Jersey. And she goes, I go out and I date guys, and they're like, oh, you live in New Jersey, and they blow me off. And she goes, but I own my own home. And she goes, it's in a great school district. She's like, and she goes, it's not my forever home, it's my home for now. And she's like, it doesn't make sense for me to rent. Like, she goes, she has all her values in the right place, but she's running against the same problem.
And then there could be a guy or a girl who lives in a 350 square foot apartment, but you're in Greenwich Village or you're in downtown Manhattan somewhere. Yeah. I think there's a term for it my friend mentioned once. It's called geographically undesirable. I grew up in New Jersey. I know what that was like, and I think there is a stigma around that. If you don't live in the right neighborhood, you're not going to be as popular on the dating apps or just meeting people, but it's definitely a value thing.
Yeah, oh, for sure. It's a huge inhibiting problem for a ton of people in New York. It's a massive problem. People will not go over the water, so they won't go over the water into New Jersey, even though it's one stop on the train, or they won't go over.
There's people in Brooklyn who won't date you if you don't live in Brooklyn. They want to date you there
for sure. I'm in.
You fall into that category.
I'm under that part of the and over my course of my years in New York City, those are definitely things I've experienced. But it's about values, and so I think that we have to become mindful of what it is, as I said before, that we value and what is it that we want. And if you really want somebody who has an apartment in Greenwich Village, then think about how that might potentially affect what does that say about the person you're dealing with. It really doesn't say anything other than
means that they value their location a lot.
For sure, right? And if you value that, maybe
more than space, you can be you're witnessing it right now,
as opposed to something like kindness, or as opposed to something.
I'm very kind too, so.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why you're married.
Do you feel like where you're at emotionally, what about people who just don't want a serious relationship? I think that's perfectly fine if you come to New York, you're young, you're single, and you say, I want to date as much as I can. How important do you think it is to recognize that if you're looking for a long-term partner, that you need to screen for this quickly versus you're just looking to have fun?
A lot of dating is figuring ourselves out. A lot of people come into the city and they're looking to date, and they just want to have fun, or they just want to have a good time, or they want to try different restaurants, or they want to explore, they want different sets of experiences. Whether it's trying different restaurants, or trying food, or going to different shows, or maybe it's just different people. Dating is our own development, right? And we're growing as human beings, and there's a time when we're trying to figure out who we are and figure out what we want, and a time when we want to experience the world. But when somebody gets to the point where they're looking for a family, or they're looking for a partner, or they're looking for a deeper love, then if they're continuing to practice the same things that they were doing when they were just looking for crazy fun experiences, I think they end up in disaster.
Chris, that was really insightful. That almost felt like a podcast to me, just going back and forth with you. I can see that you've done a lot of interviews before. Before I let you go, you want to tell the members of the barrio what services you offer if they're interested in your coaching or learning more?
For me, like I just really love helping people like connect and find that love in those partners. It's like a huge passion of mine. So yeah, so you can check out the business, you can check out the site, write comments here, and just let me know what it is that you need help with, and if there's something specific you need help with and you think that I can help, just reach out.
Yeah, guys, actually, please do leave any questions in the comments for Chris or myself, and I'm going to try to occasionally throw in these types of lifestyle videos about living in New York City, like the real realities of what it's like to be single here, what it's like to move to the greatest city in the world. Guys, make sure to check out my other New York City playlist. Chris, thanks again for joining me.
And make sure you thumbs up his videos so that we know that you like these type of videos.
Better than me, thumbs up. Okay. Guys, thank you for watching. Until next time.